Edmond III, former drug kingpin in Washington, D.C. in the 1980s, has died. No information has been released on the cause of death. So let's get into it.
I need to talk to you. It's emergency. Yes. All of us. FBI.
Our goal is to break the power of the mob in America and nothing short of it. We mean to end their profits, imprison their members, and cripple their organization.
On the streets of Washington, D.C. Never done before him, never done.
In some ways, he's like the Babe Ruth of crack dealers.
Rayful Edmond III, the biggest drug dealer in the history of Washington, D.C., sold some $300 million a year worth of cocaine and crack.
In his life, champagne flowed like water, and $150,000 shopping sprees were nothing.
Prosecutors claim that the alleged cocaine organization turned those streets into the city's biggest open-air drug market.
The true king of cocaine. At his peak, he sold up to 2,000 kilos a week. Ran an operation with over 150 soldiers to support him.
Rayful Edmond III, cocaine kingpin Rayful Edmond. Rayful Edmond III is charged with heading the city's largest cocaine.
In the media's eyes, he was guilty until proven innocent.
Edmond was so powerful and so dangerous.
Rayful Edmond walked down any street in Northeast Washington, and people will tell you here he was the reigning king, riding around in his fancy cars, his Porsches, Mercedes, his limousines. To adults who knew how he got his money, he was also a man to be feared.
Home of one witness's mother was firebombed. Earlier, another scheduled witness was shot dead.
Prosecutors say his ring committed more than 30 of Washington's 400 murders this year.
The jury in his trial had to sit behind bulletproof glass. Their identities hidden from the public.
The judge is barring the public from the trial starting next week to help protect the jury.
But to kids who saw only his glittering life, he was a man to be admired and imitated.
If you got good common sense, they will tell you that I'm up to no good.
This is his story, a story of brutality, power, money, women, murder, and the rise and fall of the Edmond Empire.
Washington, D.C. will forever be known as the murder capital of the United States because of the drug violence that jumped off during that crack era. The drug trade breed killers in Dodge City in the late 80s was a virtual war zone with bodies dropping on a daily basis. The shootouts, drive-bys, and execution-style killings were of the brutal tactics used by Chicago gangsters in the 1920s. 13 people were even killed by gunfire in a 24-hour period on February the 14th, 1989. A clear reminder of the St. Valentine's Day massacre in Chicago 70 years when 7 henchmen of gangster Bugs Moran who were shot to death by Al Capone, gun thugs. And like the Capone-era gun thugs, many of the crack-era gangsters were stone-cold killers, involved in a life they called the gang. But in reality, the consequences of losing were much more fatal. Everyone has heard of the world-class baller and cocaine kingpin turned snitch, Rayful Edmond. But less than zero has been heard about the crew that put him in position and held him down. Behind every street legend is a thorough team of go-hard soldiers. Some innovative thinkers, some stone-cold killers. It takes all types in the drug trade. The Chronicles of Gangsta would have you believing that Rayful Edmond built an inner-city drug empire by himself. But that isn't true. Every leader is only as good as the men behind him. Yes, Rayful Edmond was the full face in front of the Rayful Edmond crew, but he had a team of good men behind him, men that held him down and contributed greatly toward the legend and organization of Rayful. Men that in the end turned out to be better than Rayful because unlike Rayful, they held true to the code of the streets, and kept their mouths shut when it hit the fan. They also says, if you're willing to do the crime, then be willing to do the time. But in this war on drugs era, that is the exception rather than the rules.
The verdict today in the Edmond drug ring trial in Washington, 24-year-old Rayful Edmond convicted of running a $2 million a week cocaine crime outfit in the nation's capital. The one-time schoolyard basketball star faces a mandatory life sentence now. 10 co-defendants, including friends and relatives, were found guilty on related charges. Security surrounding the trial was unusually tight. Names of the jurors were kept secret even from the judge and lawyers to guard against possible reprisals.
For safety, we're not showing the face of the man that members of Rayful Edmond's cocaine empire knew as Jimmy.
I was in there for like 3 days and got asked, did I want to do undercover work?
He was 26 when he began living undercover as a cocaine dealer. Unarmed and using only his wits, he worked his way close to the top of the cocaine wholesale operation that is estimated to have netted Rayful Edmond Jr. $1 million a day in the mid to late 1980s. 30 murders were tied to the operation. You knew it was an organization that enforced discipline with murder.
Yes.
He remembers shipments of cocaine delivered by the truckload.
And a guy sitting on the back with a Uzi, with 2 Uzis.
Then there's the legendary story about Georgetown basketball coach John Thompson's face-to-face confrontation with Edmond. The coach told the basketball-loving drug kingpin, who reportedly offered as much as $50,000 to some Hoyas players to be on his playground team, to leave them alone.
Rayful respected that because Rayful was a big basketball fan.
The 1989 bust of the Rayful Edmond drug organization resulted in charges against almost 24 people. The sandstorm of cocaine that covered the nation's capital in misery and bloodshed would slowly start to recede. Jimmy says his only regret is that many who worked so hard to bring DC's drug kingpin to justice were never fully recognized.
Group 32 from DEA MPD Task Force that always had my back on the street, that always watched me. And I do it again.
He went to prison. He sold even more. Right here behind the concrete walls, steel bars, and locked doors of this maximum security federal penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Following his conviction as a drug kingpin, Edmond was sentenced to 2 life terms without the possibility of parole. But within just days of his arrival, he was back in business. He was dealing drugs right from his prison cell.
Just about everybody inside the jail in some way, shape, form, or fashion is dealing in drugs, either directly or indirectly.
He was caught and 2 years ago struck a deal with the feds. Ever since, he's been telling them exactly how he pulled it off. Tell me what drugs you dealt with in prison. Cocaine?
Cocaine.
Crack?
Crack.
Heroin?
Heroin.
What else?
Marijuana. Those are the basic 4: cocaine, crack, and heroin, and marijuana.
There's nothing left. You did the gamut.
Yeah, I did it all.
He did it all and then some. For starters, he brought drugs into the prison through this visiting room. He hired other inmates whose girlfriends, during contact visits, would pass the stuff packed in small balloons.
She might kiss him and he put them in his mouth. He drink a little bit of soda, water, swallow. He go do it again.
He got them all inside.
Got them all inside. Then he get back inside the institution and he spit them up.
What's the most you ever heard of those? That any one person?
That I've seen one person bring. I've seen somebody bring in like 60 of them.
Edmond says prison officials know this goes on.
They keep the jail mellow. Just keep people patient. You know, they be able to get high and chill. So they like this and let these things happen sometimes.
Come on.
Yeah, that's what they do.
He wasn't just selling drugs to other prisoners. He also masterminded the shipment of more than 2 tons of cocaine and crack from the coca fields of Columbia to the District of Columbia. Edmond says it was easy to do from behind bars.
I think it's much easier than when you're on the street.
Easier than on the street?
Much easier because you're right there with the people that have direct access to the narcotics that you need. Colombians, Cubans, Mexicans.
All thrown in together?
All thrown in together.
Thrown in with criminals like Osvaldo Trujillo Blanco, or as Edmond knew him, Chippy, a convicted drug felon.
He had a high-profile case. I had a high-profile case, so you know, we were just wanted somebody to introduce us. We were waiting for a person to come along and say, this Chicky, this Ray. And we just gonna go from there. It was right there. What else, you know, what else do we do? It's right there.
Chicky is cocaine royalty, son of Griselda Trujillo Blanco, better known as the godmother of the Colombian drug underworld, and a founding member of the notorious Medellin drug cartel. But they weren't. A year after Edmond met him, Chicky was released and returned to his horse ranch in Colombia. And that's when business really took off.
So how did you pull it off? I mean, you were doing pretty serious and impressive deals.
Oh, yeah.
From inside, I love maximum security penitentiary. Specifically, how did you do it?
Specifically, we use the bedroom room, telephones.
Specifically, these telephones, conveniently located just down the hall from his cell. Edmond would contact Chicky simply by placing a collect call to a friend in Washington. Every one of those calls was recorded.
Hello, this is the AT&T operator with a collect call. Who's calling, please?
Right.
Will you accept the charge? Uh-huh.
The friend, in turn, connected him to Chicky all the way down in Medellin.
What reason would I be calling out the country? I'm not from Colombia or South America.
Here's an inmate that's calling Medellin 3 and 4 times a week.
So you know I'm up to something. Just common sense would tell you. If you got good common sense, it would tell you that I'm up to no good.
In one afternoon, he made 59 phone calls to 5 states and 2 foreign. Edmond says he and Chicky weren't taking any chances. They spoke in code. When
he made that statement to me, he was letting me know that the price went down 3,000, went from 19th Street to 16th Street. So automatically knew what he was talking about.
Edmond used an entirely different code when he spoke to his distributors back in Washington, D.C. Believe it or not, he used Pig Latin.
You want to hear a little bit?
Yeah, I want to hear what you said.
How does what if they said that you got to use the two to do whatever before the community?
What did you say?
Oh, I was just saying, I feel good today.
So fast. You could do that.
You got to be fast so nobody will understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you could just do this whole interview like that?
Yeah, I could do the whole interview like that.
Now, but what kind of money will you make out of this?
I wasn't making the money that I should be making, but you know, I was getting 5,000 here, 10,000 there, which is good money for somebody that's in jail and doing time.
It was good money for anyone. $200,000 in 2 years collected for him by associates on the outside. But the money flow was disrupted when Chicky was gunned down in a Medellin nightclub, but only temporarily, because Edmond quickly struck up with another inmate, this time from the Cali cartel. Freddie Aguilera was serving 60 years with no parole, just a cell block away.
And you hook up with another Colombian.
Yeah. Like I told you, the temptation, you know, you got people every day, different people coming to me trying to hook up drug deals. And this is something that I can do and I know how to do. So it was just hard to say, no, I don't want to be involved in it when I can just say, okay, let me set this deal up and give me a quick $20,000 or $30,000.
Prison authorities never did figure out what Edmond was up to, but the FBI and local police here in Washington, D.C. did, thanks to a tip from a jailhouse informant. When the feds went to Edmond with the evidence, much to their surprise, he agreed to cooperate. With his help, the government was able to lock up 15 drug dealers, among them some of the most violent drug thugs in the nation's capital.
Why did you decide to cooperate?
Because I wanted to put it all behind me. I wanted to help my family, first of all. That was the first thing that gave me the motivation. My mom, my aunt, and my 3 sisters.
His mom, his sisters, brothers-in-law, and others were all in the family business with Edmond and are all serving time. His mother and sisters are together at the Alderson prison camp in West Virginia. The feds told Edmond they would not recommend a sentence reduction for him, but they agreed to go to bat for his 56-year-old mother, who was sentenced to 24 years in prison for her role in Rayful's drug enterprise.
That's my mom. You know, I love her. You know, I miss her. You know, I hope she'll be okay.
I feel very honored. I mean, he has life or 2 life sentences, and he didn't think about himself. He thought about his mother.
Constance Boothby Perry is the unlikely matriarch of Washington's most prominent crime family. Before she got locked up, she had a $40,000 a year job in the federal government.
So you got your kids educated, you made sure they went to church, you had a good job, your ex-husband had a good job.
Yeah, he had a job. He worked for the government.
He worked for the government. You were middle-class people.
Yeah.
He was not raised in the inner city. He lived in the suburbs. Safe place.
Yeah.
How many of your children are in jail?
6.
You have 7 kids and 6 are in jail. You're in jail?
Yeah.
Come on. What happened?
I can't really say, and I think basically I'm in here only because I knew what was going on.
She was a mom to me, but also she was a personal friend to me. So when things, with selling drugs, like I told you before, so many things go wrong. People get killed, people lose their jobs, people get strung out, and whenever things go wrong or things don't go right in my life, she was my friend. I go talk to her and tell her about all these things, about what's going on with me, and she knew about all that. And she ended up telling all the things that I told her to an informant on a wiretap, and that made her be part of the conspiracy.
Well, it was more than that. Lucy admits she wanted to come to the son's drug money, and she accepted a car, a house, and other gifts purchased with his drug proceeds.
I've always wanted a nice big house, so I wanted to be able to buy that for her one day. She always wanted them to stay. I wanted to be able to buy that for her.
When Edmond was a child, both his parents sold drugs. The father allegedly heroin. Lucy says she sold diet pills and admits she sometimes had Rayful handle the money. But she blames his friends for getting him into the drug trade.
Or he spent fast money, or he saw them driving big cars, and he said, hey, man, how did you do this? How did you get this?
For money.
Yeah, for money. Oh, greed. You say greed. I'll say greed.
This is your watch.
Yeah, it used to be my watch.
Used to be your watch. The government now has this watch.
Yeah, the government owns it now.
How much did this watch cost?
Oh, close to $100,000.
Was it typical what you would buy when you
Typical
were...
things that I would buy when I was home.
When you were fancy?
Yeah, I was real jazzy. Yeah, I like try to have a lot of class.
Did you wear a lot of diamonds on your...
No, I wasn't. I just had one carat. I just had a 10-carat diamond ring, a 3-carat for my ear, and just a diamond chain that matched the watch.
Very simple.
Yeah, just simple but stand out.
Today, he's trying not to stand out. So the feds have put him in a little-known witness protection program for convicts. He lives under an alias in a different prison where it's hoped those he betrayed won't find him. But if he's hiding out, why is he talking to us? He says he wants the kids in Washington, D.C., who see him as a hero, to know that what he did was wrong.
A lot of my friends from my neighborhood lost their lives because I brought drugs in the community. The people dying.
Crack babies?
Some babies probably was born from crack because of me. Yeah, I feel bad about them now, but back then, I was just thinking about the power.
We tried to ask the Bureau of Prisons what they're doing to prevent prison drug dealing, but they refused to comment. Do you think that's going on today, right now?
I'm quite sure it is. Yeah, people are sitting in prison making drug deals. Yeah, you sitting there and you have nothing to do. And everybody needs money and they love money, so I'm quite sure that it's going on right now.
In fact, the Bureau of Prisons may have made it even easier. When the FBI began its investigation of Rayful Edmond, there were 3 phones on his cell block, and inmates could use them every other day. Today, there are 4 phones, and prisoners can use them.
News for some, the notorious one-time cocaine kingpin of D.C., Rayful Edmond, has been released from a federal prison. Edmond served more than 3 decades of a life sentence, his crimes helping to inspire our City Under Siege coverage in the 1980s. But Edmond has also worked as a government informant, leading in part to his early release. Fox 5's Bob Barnard is live in Northeast D.C. with all the details. Bob?
Hey there, Shamari. Rayful Edmond's base of operations was in this Northeast D.C. neighborhood around 4th and M Street. The Federal Bureau of Prisons today says that Rayful Edmond was released from custody yesterday and transferred to a halfway house. They're not saying where, but the Bureau's Nashville, Tennessee office is now in charge of his case. You're about to hear from a longtime D.C. activist who says he's known Rayful Edmonds for years, and he spoke to him yesterday.
He told me he's going to a halfway house. He didn't say where, but he said he'd get back with me.
I'm back than ever. This is video that's been circulating on social media today, purported to be the now 59-year-old Rayful Edmond in an airport, just having been released from prison.
When I spoke to him, he was in the airport. Get ready to get on another plane.
We spoke to Tyrone Parker today. He's a founding member of a DC-based organization called Alliance of Concerned Men and has known Rayful Edmond for years, since he became a federal prisoner.
He's doing well. He's happy, as you can almost imagine. It's a miracle that he's home.
Rayful Edmond was arrested at age 24, sentenced in federal court in 1990 to life in prison for basically introducing crack cocaine to D.C., helping the city earn the title the murder capital of the U.S. in the 1980s, convicted of running a criminal enterprise of about 150 people, raking in $300 million a year, responsible for the murders of at least 30 people. Speaking to Fox 5 in prison shortly after his conviction.
From what I've been reading in the newspapers, seeing on the news, Washington, D.C. is worse than it was when we was out on the street, so how could it be us?
But Edmond received another 30-year sentence for dealing massive amounts of drugs from his Pennsylvania prison cell. Now, many years later, his petition to be released from prison early has been granted. Jason Downs has been Edmond's attorney for the past 7 years.
He feels that he has served, and we believe that Mr. Edmond has served and paid his debt to society.
Let's give the man a chance. Yeah, he did some terrible things occur that he was a part of. But we're talking about 33 years ago.
Mr. Parker says Edmond seems remorseful and told him he wants to now give back to the community.
Bob, I'm looking to take help from anybody that I would think that could help to stop the killing. I cannot afford to have selective morality. He's done his 33 years and chance, and if he can help to save one person, that's good enough for me.